I think it's funny that writers that are using AI to write prose and are letting the AI generate 40% of the prose, that they, number one, think it's their actual novel, and number two, that they think that the prose is good. I want to say this because I know this is going to ruffle a lot of feathers. These writers that have always wanted to write and now they're using a tool like Sonnet, it looks like it's doing a great job, doesn't it? Doesn't it look like it's just making your words beautiful? No. Spoiler alert, my friend. I can pick up any AI generated text and I can immediately spot all the AI-isms. They're everywhere. And today we are going to take a look at how the voice of a real writer sounds like and how the prose sounds when it's AI generated. And you are going to be like blown away at how easily these things are spottable. And here's the reason why. Hey there, writer, and welcome back to the Novelist Studio. I am your host, Anna Del Valle, and today I have a very informative and I would say quite scandalous episode for you. So lately, I have been getting a lot of unsolicited advice about AI and writing. I have writers actually reaching out, leaving comments on my YouTube channel, explaining to me how I should be talking about AI in writing. Pretty cute, huh? Because the thing is that I've already built a system on top of an LLM that has been recognized by the US Copyright Office for an AI-assisted novel development framework that is also in alignment with the Authors Guild guidance. First of all, I think it's funny that writers that are using AI to write prose and are letting the AI generate 40% of the prose, that they, number one, think it's their actual novel, and number two, that they think that the prose is good. Okay. So first of all, I want to say this because I know this is going to ruffle a lot of feathers. But if you're writing and you're finding joy in writing and you are using tools like Sonnet and Opus to create your drafts and then to refine your prose, and it's making you feel good and it is advancing your quality of life and your joy, please continue to do so. Continue to do so. Okay? The copyright law states that it's not your work. It may be your work one day because the laws may change, right? And especially if this is your first book, because the rise of AI generation tools like Claude and ChatGPT have really lent themselves very well to folks who have always wanted to write but didn't know how to get started or were daunted by the process or were drowning in craft theory, as it happens to many of us. Just want to say that I recognize that. So I'm not putting anyone down, but what I am doing is I hope to educate on how writers that are going to be great writers, that are going to have an incredible readership, that are going to be picked up traditionally by agents, how those writers use generative AI tools, which is what my system is. My system is built for writers to actually be able to create very complex novels. They have to write the book themselves. They have to write it. They have to write it. But they're going to go in with a roadmap that they had never been able to go in before. They're going to have all kinds of details for their novel already at their fingertips. Now, all they have to do is sit down and write. And once they write that prose, they can use generative AI to continue to do their developmental edits. Okay. And as a result, you're going to upskill in your writing abilities very quickly. But let's go back to recent advice that I was given by somebody on my channel, and I know this person came from a good place, so I hope that you know there I hope that anybody hearing this understands that I'm coming from a place of education and really helping writers be the best that they can be. Okay, so this person said to me, hey, I love that you're trying to help, but ChatGPT is a terrible writer, and the way that you should be using these generative AI tools is you need to use Claude for your prose, and then you can go in and you can clean it up with Opus, which is another language model that lives inside of Anthropic. Anthropic is both Claude and Opus. So, and a lot of writers are doing this, but here's the deal. Even if you write 50%, 60% of the draft yourself, okay, you're still going to be in muddy waters. But that's not even the issue. I mean, I don't really, at this point, I don't really even care about the copyright law, although I do follow it. My students follow it. You should follow it. If you really want to be a writer that a real serious writer, right? If you just want to write for fun and create a bunch of indie books and put them up on Amazon, go nuts, okay? But I am teaching writers how to use AI, those writers that want to have a career in writing, those writers that want to get picked up traditionally, those writers that one day want to see their book in a movie. Those are the writers that I want to work with. And of course, if you're an indie writer, and that's plenty of amazing indie writers out there that take their craft very seriously and they understand the craft of writing. So the point of contention here is that this person was trying to teach me how to teach others how to use AI. They don't even know how to use AI correctly. Okay, at least not the way that it was intended. If you are a serious writer that wants to not have any court dates for copyright issues, or if you want to get picked up traditionally. So again, I don't even care about the copyright law because that may change. What I do care about, and I think that it is very, very important, is that these writers that have always wanted to write and now they're using a tool like Sonnet, it looks like it's doing a great job, doesn't it? Doesn't it look like it's just making your words beautiful? No. Spoiler alert, my friend. Okay. I can pick up any AI generated text and I can immediately spot all the AI isms. They're everywhere. And today we are going to take a look at how the voice of a real writer sounds like and how the prose sounds when it's AI generated. And you are going to be like blown away at how easily these things are spottable. And here's the reason why. AI, generative AI, friends, doesn't have an original voice. It doesn't. It works from a blueprint of phrases and words that it knows that humans use. Not only that, AI, generative AI, it is trained to be incredibly smooth, which is why a lot of these first-time writers are looking at their prose going, oh my goodness, this sounds incredible. And we're going to look at examples. I'm going to use two real examples from amazing writers They are New York Times bestsellers. They're opening paragraphs, and you're going to hear their voice. And then I'm going to use an opening paragraph of an AI generated book. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to put it up on the screen here, and I am going to show you every single AI-ism in just a paragraph and a half. There's a metaphor that I like to use. I like to use the paint by numbers artist. If you're using Sonnet to write your prose, if you're using Opus to refine your prose, this is the equivalent of using a paint my numbers kit. Okay, you're going to end up with something that looks like art form from a distance. But anyone in the publishing industry, friends, with a trained eye knows it's a formula, not a real painting. The other metaphor that I like to use is, oh my gosh, I'm using Opus and it's refining my prose so well. Well, it's like buying a boxed cake mix, pouring it in a pan, and saying that you're a pastry chef. You've got a cake, sure, but it's not the same as creating a recipe, balancing the flavors, learning the craft of baking. It is a very different, friends, very different, friends. And again, I am not saying this to shame any AI generated writers, but please know the difference and know that I know that it looks like it's good prose. It's not. It's not. Let me tell you what good prose looks like. Now, we are all artists. Writers are all artists. And we have a voice. We have a very distinct voice. That is the voice that we hear in our heads all the time. Okay, when we are starting to ideate a character, we can hear that character. We can hear the irreverence of the character, or how humorous it is, or what a mess they are. And this is how you know good writing. You pick up a book and you read the first few sentences, and you know this is that author's voice. This is the author's voice. This is the beginning of The Big Swiss. This is a book by Jane Began that was published in 2023. It is a dark comedy. It's blunt and very voice driven from the very first line. The narrator here is Greta, and she's introducing herself while eavesdropping on therapy sessions that she transcribes. You're going to see how this prose is full of sharp, oddball observations. Here we go. Greta called her Big Swiss because she was tall and from Switzerland and often dressed from top to toe in white, the color of surrender. Her blonde hair was as fine as dandelion dander and looked like it might fly off her head in a stiff breeze. She had a gap between her two front teeth, but none of that easy charm that usually came with it, and her pale blue eyes were of the penetrating cult leader variety. Okay. Now that, friends, is voice. This person actually sat down and she wrote that passage, and then later she went in and edited it or whatever. But you guys can see how strong that voice is. Now let's take another example. This is another one of my favorite authors. She is magic realism, and I have never seen anybody write a book that sends the main character into complete insanity, and you as the reader don't even know, oh my gosh, how did we get here? Now she's suddenly insane. That is called craft. That is called planning your novel. That is called planning your beats and planning your character reveals. That's what that is called. When you are reading a novel and suddenly you're like, oh my gosh, how did I get here? Why is this happening? And Mona Awad does this beautifully in her novel Rogue from 2023. So the opening is very lush and very surreal, very dreamlike. And I am looking for my passage here. There it is. Okay. Here's the opening of Rogue. After the funeral, I'm hiding in my mother's bathroom, watching a skincare video about necks. Cheap black dress that shaves, illicit cigarette, sitting on the toilet amid her decorative baskets, her red jellyfish soaps, her black towel sets. Smoke comes tumbling out of my mouth in amorphous gray clouds. I blow it out the window where the palm trees still sway and the alien sun still shines and the sky is a blue that hurts my eyes. There's a Kleenex box made entirely of jagged seashells at my back. Probably she never once filled it with Kleenex. That was like what? 4 lines, 5 lines? You already know how this author is going to sound, what journey you're going to be on. Now, let's take a look at an AI generated book. Here we go. The soft glow of morning sunlight filtered through the curtains, casting gentle shadows across the small kitchen. Emma sat at her table, her heart fluttering as she watched Daniel move across the room, humming softly while he prepared breakfast. The aroma of sizzling bacon and fresh coffee enveloped her, a comforting smell that announced home. Good morning, Daniel said warmly, a smile crinkling in his eyes as he set a steaming mug in front of her. Did you sleep well? Emma nodded, though a thrill of anticipation rippled through her as his hands brushed hers. It was silly that after all these years that he could still make her heart skip a beat. She looked down quickly, cheeks flushed, laughter lacing her words, as she tried to change the subject. Breakfast was a lively affair, filled with easy conversation. Now here's an entire paragraph or a few lines. I'm almost done. That almost everything is like textbook AI output. Breakfast was a lively affair filled with easy conversations, their voices weaving together like a well-rehearsed symphony. Later, close became a trail of discarded fabric in the soft lamplight as passion ignited between them, every touch and caress building to a crescendo of pleasure. Exhausted but not content, Emma finally drifted into sleep, her lips curved into a satisfied sigh. Okay, how does that sound? It sounds pretty good, right? It sounds like we just bought a Betty Crocker cake mix and we are going to mix our cake and wow, we're going to make a great chocolate cake. But is it an award-winning chocolate cake? No. Can anybody make this chocolate cake because they just buy the Betty Crocker box and make the cake? Yes, 100%. So, and by the way, again, I'm doing this video because I really want to reach those writers that are using AI to write. I want to reach you because, I mean, I don't know. If you really want to be an award-winning author, if you really want to use AI in an ethical way to make you a better writer, if you have really big writer dreams, ditch the Betty Crocker box, please, and use AI the way it was intended to. Trust me, you are going to be blown away using an AI assisted system versus an AI generation system. Okay, let's talk about the 8 AI generated isms in action in that particular paragraph. Generic atmospheric opening. The soft glow of morning sunlight filtered through the curtains, casting gentle shadows. This, friends, is called stock imagery that shows up in thousands of AI outputs. Thousands. Anytime you see the soft glow morning, sunlight filtered through these words, they are stock AI words. Stock AI words. AI loves overload, sensory stacks that kind of sound right. Example. The aroma of sizzling bacon and fresh coffee enveloped her. Enveloped is another one that is just everywhere. A comforting smell that announced home. Too many sensory cliches piled on at once that really don't give us any subtext about the character anyway. Okay, there's a lot of lazy emotional shorthand in AI. Things like her heart fluttering, her heart skipped, that kind of stuff. AI summarizes. AI by design. By design. AI generative models, large language models, are built to summarize and homogenize and clean up text beautifully. Okay, another one that I have seen millions of times is the on the nose stage directions of AI generated text. Daniel moved across the room, humming softly while he prepared breakfast. AI loves to clean stuff up and make it nice and tidy, guys. That's what AI does. So this reads like a blocking script instead of an actual a deep layering of emotional subtext in a novel. Anytime a character has an action, right? Every time the character has an action on a page, it means something. Okay, so we have four more. Four more. This is just one a paragraph from one AI generated novel, just one. And look at how many we have already. Let's take a look at number 5, stock phrasing. Stock phrasing are predictable, recyclable phrases that AI always delivers on their output. Here's one from that paragraph. A smile crinkling his eyes, a thrill of anticipation rippled through her, right? Cheeks flushed. All these are predictable, recycled phrases that are stock phrases from AI. I don't care if you're using Sonnet. I don't care if you're using Opus. It's it, it it's math. It was trained on specific outputs. It was trained to homogenize and clean. It was trained to summarize things. So, and I say all this because, again, there is nothing wrong if you want to write a generative AI novel. Please be my guest. Go nuts. You're making a Betty Crocker cake. You really are. You really are making a Betty Crocker cake. But that's fine. And if that's what you want to do and it brings you joy, by all means, please do it. Oh, and also, it's not really your novel by the copyright law. Okay, so a purple prose and intimacy. Okay, so AI by default is overblown. It gives you like a lot of flowery things, a lot of melodramatic things, because it's trying to sound human. Here's one. Clothes became a trail of discarded fabric in the soft lamplight, every touch and caress building to a crescendo of pleasure. That is overblown, flowery, melodramatic language. Very nice, very cleaned up, very homogenized. And of course, just this paragraph that I read in what was like what 10 lines or something like that. It had very abrupt episodic beats. The scene jumps from morning, breakfast, passion, sleep. It reads like a checklist of events because that's what AI does. That's what AI does. Now, there's a few other ones that are not in that passage, but I've seen them a million times. AI loves to grab relatable cliches from lifestyle writing, even Reddit, like his soup probably cost more than my rent. That watch was worth more than my entire student loan debt. Then it also does a lot of fake, witty, self-deprecating AI-isms. I've seen these a million times. It loves TED Talk metaphors. For example, he could have had his own TED Talk the way he went on. I suddenly felt like the sidekick in my own story. These are all stock phrases, by the way. Stock phrases. Now, I'm not saying that AI is a data repository. That's not what it is. That's not how it works. But it is trained on patterns of how people sound based on everything that it's read. Oh, I've seen stuff like this before, these kind of metaphors. If awkward silences were an Olympic sport, I'd have a gold medal. And, stuff, and of course, more urban stuff like pop culture stuff, like it was giving main character energy, stuff like that. So, anyways, so if you are tempted to give me advice about using Sonnet to write and Opus to refine, save it. Save it. I'll stick with my AI assisted system. I will. It actually produces novels that sell, that sound original, that make the writer a great writer very quickly, very quickly. And most of all, it produces novels that stand up in court. And with that, friends, I wrap up today's episode. And until next time, keep on writing.